As many of you have probably already seen, I'm not the biggest fan of the F-18C for the US tech tree. I don't really care about them in real life. I don't play ground RB, and I already own the F-15s and the F-16s in the US tech tree, so I really don't have any real reason to play the F-18C. However, the F-18A at 12.3 battle rating is an entirely different story. This plane is actually pretty good. Well, really I'd say very good for 12.3. And it just further bolsters the already stacked US 12.3 lineup for ARB with the F-16A and the F-20. Not that the F-20 is a problem by any means, I'm not complaining about it, but it is a strong plane at 12.3, there's no doubt about it. The F-16A, on the other hand, I think is a little overly strong at 12.3. That plane has really no business having that kind of flight model. AIM-9Ls be damned, it doesn't matter. I really think that plane should be 12.7. I'd much rather see one plane struggle, the F-16A, than the F-16A absolutely dunking on everything at its own battle rating or lower. And now you have the F-18A at 12.3, which takes everything that you probably would have complained about on the F-16A, and it fixes it with, albeit some trade-offs, and that's largely the flight performance, but we're going to get to that later. With the F-18A, you actually get the ability to carry Sparrows, whereas the F-16A obviously cannot. You get 4 AIM-7M Sparrows backed up by 2 AIM-9Ls, and that is a pretty good kit for 12.3. The countermeasure loadout is more or less standard for this battle rating at 60 countermeasures. I run mostly flares still because you don't see too much Fox 3, and I don't seem to really need that much chaff for Fox 1 gameplay. And of course, IRCCM is still pretty strong, even at 12.3, 12.7, and then of course you'll find the 13.0 games and higher even sometimes where you're definitely going to be finding IRCCM, and those missiles are going to require a good bit of flares, so I take 40-20 loadout for my countermeasures. The radar, being that you're not really using TWS ever since you're not using Fox 3, is actually pretty serviceable at 12.3. I complain a lot about the F-18C's radar, and that's largely just because I'm using TWS obviously for my AMRAMs, and the TWS on the F-18C is just not working, at least not working as well as I think it should right now, and it becomes very frustrating to use, as I'm sure a lot of you have already experienced so far. But again, since you're using pretty much just normal pulse Doppler mode with this F-18 and your Sparrows, that's not too much of an issue. I'm using a lot of ACM anyways, I'm not even really using the radar, mostly ACM, and for that it does just fine. And largely, of course, as I said, we'll touch on later, here's the later, the flight performance. The flight performance of the F-18A is actually good for 12.3 battle rating. Unlike the F-18C at 14.0, this plane is not to be messed with really in 1 versus 1 situations. Sure, it's still not the greatest sustained fighter at all, absolutely, but there's more to top tier obviously than sustained fighting. And even still, in down tiers, you're going to find some planes that you're just going to be able to straight up beat even in sustained fights. This plane can go all the way down to 11.3, and there's certainly some planes, many planes, that you can beat in 1 versus 1 situations regardless of how long the fight drags out for. But even against some of those tougher opponents, the Hornet still has great angle of attack characteristics. It can pull very hard, and of course you can switch that limiter off, so if anyone decides to take you into a 1 circle, you can definitely outperform them in that aspect. And again, at 12.3 battle rating, you're not that underpowered, and you're not carrying that 10 AMRAM loadout that's killing all of your acceleration. Your flight performance is actually, again, pretty good. With, of course, the only downside still being that you are a Hornet and you do bleed a lot of speed, but just keep that in mind, and you've got a very serviceable plane for 12.3 with a better kit than the F-16A. Not quite as good of a UFO flight model, obviously, but again, serviceable, and still that same 60 countermeasures. This plane is definitely lethal at 12.3, and I do recommend you actually grind this one. The F-18C, on the other hand, I mean, again, like I said in the video, that's more so if you're a Hornet fan. This plane, on the other hand, I think, if you're a Hornet fan or not, is a competitive plane to play at 12.3, and you're going to enjoy yourself. I have not made a video on the premium Hornet yet, which I do plan on doing, but I hope most of you know by now that it's just really not worth $80 in my opinion. You probably already know that, and that's in a lot of people's opinion. Not only is just a single plane on War Thunder not really worth 80 bucks in my opinion, but it's just the value of the plane itself. It's not that good for 12.7. and its matchmaker mainly is the real issue for that. It's not a fun plane to play, it's not consistent to grind with, and when you're paying $80, I think you probably want a little bit more of an enjoyable experience, a little bit more of an easy, consistent experience, and the premium Hornet is not exactly that plane, at least in the matchmaker right now. That could change once the spam dies down, who knows, you might see less 13.7, less 13.3, you might see some more friendly matchmaking, but as of right now when I played it, it was not too fun. So again, if you're going to play an F-18 and you're looking to have consistently good games, I think the best option right now is the 12.3 F-18A. I am in a 1v1 at the end of the game here with an F-14B. He has shot a lot of Phoenixes at me. I kind of just forget that he can shoot guns at me. I get very lucky that he didn't do super bad damage, though he did damage me pretty badly. However, if he's going to stick a fight like this where he just wants to keep turning into my nose, it's kind of a nose-to-nose fight, a one circle, you might call it. Even my damaged F-18 is going to be able to pull inside of his circle here just because the AOA is ridiculous. I'll get probably my one and only shot. Thankfully, I hit it, and I win this game and manage to not die thanks to that nifty AOA limiter, and it lets me pull out of that. Again, that's probably my #1 favorite thing about the AOA limiters, is that they really help me avoiding crashes. So definitely a spot of luck there to win the 1v1 engagement, but again, if that F-14 wants to just turn inside of me nose to nose all day long, that's pretty much my favorite way to dogfight anything in the F-18. That's just the F-18 specialty, and you want to avoid that when possible when going up against one. However, I'm speaking all these good things about the F-18, but have you guys had anything like this happening lately on your F-18? In my experience, it's really only been F-18s with Sparrows. The Sparrows go extremely stupid very often. This Sparrow does basically a 180 off of the rail, tracking nowhere near the target, obviously, in front of my nose there. And then, of course, I had that happen many times within the 1 hour session that I played. It happened about 4 times. I'm going to show you 2 clips within that hour. It's a pretty common bug right now. I think GAIJIN's aware of it. I think they're working on it. Let me know if you've had this issue down in the comments below, but look at all these Sparrows I'm shooting at this guy, and none of them are even close to tracking. It takes my 4th and final Sparrow just to track the guy right in front of my airplane. Again, let me know if this has happened to you down in the comments. I had this happen pretty frequently when I was playing out the Sparrow F-18s. As far as explanations, I understand that the radars aren't laser beams and the missiles aren't going to track everything perfectly. They're going to go for the most optimal return signal, and that's not always going to be the guy you're locked onto. However, the extra illumination the radar is providing should not be that wide. There should be not that much area the missile can veer off to and get a return from that it likes more than the actual target. It should only be within, a certain number of degrees from the radar lock, and anything outside of that, where you're seeing on the screen here, where it's going like 30 degrees left or right, or hell, pulling 180s like you were seeing in the first clip there that I showed, that's just unrealistic. And again, I think GAIJIN's aware of this and they are working on it. And I do believe that it's only the F-18 for some reason right now. I haven't had this happen on any other Sparrow planes. Who knows, this could even be fixed by the time this video comes out. But it's just something I wanted to point out and let you guys know in case you're going to be using these planes. AOA limiter, once again, saving my behind. I'm able to pull a silly move that kind of gets me out of the nose of this F-18 that was attacking me. My teammates are able to clean them up, and I'm able to avoid crashing. Love that button. It's a very funny button. You can do some really cool stuff, but as far as practical purposes, that's definitely #1 and has come in handy more times than I can count. So for the sake of just not yapping on about the same thing for the next hour, that's pretty much the end of the video. That's all I wanted to say about the F-18A. It gets a thumbs up from Mr. Seekerhead, and I do think it's worth a grind. As always, I'll leave the remainder of the gameplay on the screen. If you guys want to watch, you're more than welcome to. Other than that, I'm probably going to be covering the J11B next. Until then, I'll see you guys real soon. Thanks for watching.